Many piano learners ask me what is the best practicing routine and how to divide practicing time. And it's very good if you ask yourself such questions, because piano playing is a set of skills and it might be not very efficient to limit yourself to a small amount of pieces, not exploring and not developing other skills. And I even know piano players who gave up on their careers because they were forced to concentrate on a very limited range of piano pieces which they were supposed to prepare for competitions, for example. And they found it very boring because when you prepare for a competition, of course, you have to over-practice your stuff and you have to limit yourself to a very small repertoire, making it as perfect as possible, which is actually quite boring, I have to say, as a person who have participated in many competitions. So if you are a beginner or an intermediate player who plays piano, let's say, less than 2-3 years, I would suggest you to break your practicing sessions into a few parts so you would develop yourself in a more integrated way. And today I will share with you this routine, and of course I will give you some very important tips to each of these parts. So if you can spend, let's say, 1 hour a day practicing piano, this is my practicing session which I suggest you to try out and write in comments whether you like it or why would you prefer another algorithm. So first 5 to 7 minutes I suggest you to warm up, and warming up is a very important stage, and warming up means preparing your body to challenging tasks. It means that starting from fast scales or fast passages is not really healthy. It's not very healthy to start practicing immediately from something very challenging, which includes a lot of like motor activity, like it's not healthy and it's quite dangerous, especially if your piano technique is not yet optimized perfectly. If you are prone to some static tension, I would not suggest to start playing like fast scales. I would indeed suggest you to start from very gentle stretch exercises, and they are of course widely available. You can just Google and you will find a bunch of options. What I like very much is, for example, when you would just connect your hand palms and then lower your hands like this, so your forearms would form like a straight line, and in this position you already would feel a gentle stretch here. And then you additionally can increase it by pushing the fingers of one hand towards the fingers of another one, like this one. But of course you have to do it very gently and never overdoing such stretch exercises. In my opinion, the best way to warm up gently and in a safe way is to play something with comfortable chords. Of course, if you start practicing with wide chords, like something like this, it doesn't work, because it's a lot of stretch. It's already a certain load on the hand. But if you practice some comfortable chords, like for example on this amusing Toccatina by Kabalevsky, which I have actually analyzed in my new course for late beginners, it's really great because it allows you to warm up in a very gentle and safe way. Because when you play comfortable chords with healthy technique, it's like giving yourself a massage, actually. By practicing like this, you can actually improve your condition if you have some hand pains, for example. And in my new course for late beginners, which contains 8 hours of exclusive content and a lot of useful links, you will learn how to master this and 15 other little pieces by 10 different composers, many of which are in the current abracadabra curriculum of levels 2 and 3. I can never pronounce this. And I cover in detail how to master these pieces, how to form good playing habits, how to play without tension, how to understand musical language. Basics of music theory are also explained there. And you have a few more days to get this course for 50% price. So check it out, following the link in the description. You can also warm up by practicing harmony and music theory. And this is a great way to learn actually music theory, because most of people are bored to death with music theory, and that's absolutely understandable, because when you have to just memorize just purely theoretical concepts like, okay, this is a major 7th chord, and this is minor 7th chord, and this major 7th chord, and you're like, okay, why do I need all this? But if you immediately apply to practice by, for example, analyzing pieces you play, what I do actually in my course, I teach music theory directly on the pieces we are mastering there. Or if you, for example, immediately treat it more creatively by improvising on that, chord progression is much more fun. That's why if you, for example, eventually have learned another day about, let's say, an interrupted cadenza in music, and interrupted cadenza is when you have, let's say, 1 tonic, then you have 4 subdominant, then you have dominant 7th, let's say 5th scale degree, and then you resolve it not typically to C major back as it usually happens, but instead you resolve it to the 6th scale degree. And if you understand the connotation, the meaning this chord progression conveys, then it would be much more fun. For example, this chord progression for me always symbolizes like lost hopes. Like, for example, when I played, I remember myself, for example, being a teenager and like, let's say, approaching some famous agents or venue runners, and I would write them something like, "Hey, I'm such a great pianist. Would you invite me for a concert? Although you don't know me, but I really would love to play at your festival." And they're like, "No." And you're like... So this is what interrupted cadenza is about, and you can also now practice it by, for example, improvising on it. And when you improvise, when you start improvising, don't try to immediately create something genius. It's not about that. It's more about learning a language. Like, you learn a foreign language and you learn just basic phrases. Where's the supermarket and what time is it now? So don't try to imitate all these brilliant people who learn improvisation for 20 years and improvise already brilliantly. You keep things simple. So first you define the chord progression you want to practice. Let's say this interrupted cadenza in C major, let's say, yeah. Then you decide on what kind of accompaniment pattern you want to use in it, because the options, of course, endless. You can use imitate Mozart, or you can, for example, play something more romantic with open positions, or just bass and some chords. Yeah, let's say, let's go for this option. And after you have decided on chord progression and left hand pattern, you think about how to sing around these harmonic notes in the right hand. So you basically have harmony, and you have E, G, C, which are your harmonic sounds here. So you think about how you can actually play around these sounds. So like, or so options are endless. So for example, we depart from C major, playing just around C major sounds, F major, some chromatic note, then G7, and then get into the 6th scale degree, and let's wrap up it somehow. 4, 2, and then B flat, for example. So something like that. So you start from simple chord progressions, and gradually you will enrich your chord progressions vocabulary, let's say. Eventually maybe ending with something, let's say, more jazzy or something like that, or whatever it might be. Another great way to learn chord progressions is, of course, transposing them. When you learn a chord progression in a certain key and then you just repeat it in other keys, like for example in C minor, as I just did, and then let's shift it to D minor. And then, let's say, in E flat minor, and then, let's say, in E minor. You might consider spending 10 to 20 minutes daily for technical work, scales, arpeggios, exercises, etudes. Of course, some pianists claim that they have never played scales and that they despise playing scales, but those are usually people who are not just very gifted in terms of technique, but also people who play pianos in stage of 5 for several hours a day. So if you're an adult beginner and you hear advices from professional pianists that, oh, you don't need scales, just play some music, I would treat it with a certain grain of salt, actually. That's why I have 2 courses dedicated to Haydn exercises and Brahms exercises, which I use in order to explain general universal piano playing concept. So you might check it out if you want to know more about the art of efficient piano playing. And of course, I have a lot of free videos on YouTube about how to play scales efficiently, how to master arpeggio technique faster, and many others. 5 to 10 minutes you might spend towards ear training, because this is a skill which is overlooked very often. And it's a very useful skill, and of course we have to treat it seriously and develop it constantly. And for that you might listen just to very simple songs or even ringtones, even like picking up by ear something like that. It's already a great idea. It's a good exercise for developing your ears. You can go a more substantial path, of course, and check out some professionally graded courses for ear training. There are unfortunately not many courses which resemble what we had, for example, in our music education. In my music school, we had special classes for ear training, and we were supposed to write down specially designed dictations, special melodies or chord progressions, which were designed specially for training an ability to recognize typical melodic patterns or harmonic progressions. And it's not easy to find something like that online, but I have actually found one website which has such a course for professionally designed ear training curriculum of levels 1 and 2. And I don't know this guy, it's not an affiliated link, but I think that this is really great because it's very difficult to find something like that for free online. So check it out and you might follow these instructions and train your ears the way we do it in professional music schools. Then, of course, 5 to 10 minutes I really would spend towards sight reading because this is a very useful skill. And of course, at first it might be a bit tough if you don't read notes very well, but you just have to start from something very simple. You have to start reading something what seems easy for you. If it would be something like that, then you start reading these types of pieces which are really like feature very basic patterns. And of course, there are tons of videos about sight readings, and I don't even know whether I have to make another one or not because it's already so much content on this topic. But I just will quickly mention that when you sight read, you don't really start from jumping in and starting playing. Before you actually start sight reading something, you at first analyze the score. Like, for example, if you want to read this beautiful etude, which is also actually covered in my course for late beginners, you first would look at it attentively, and first you analyze the time signature, the key, and what are main challenges or what are typical things you actually see there. So at first we analyze time signature. We see that the piece is written in 6/8, so we count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 in a bar. Then we analyze the key in which this piece is written, and we see that there are no flats, no sharps, so we have only two options. The piece is written in either C major or A minor. And in order to understand it definitely in which key this piece is composed, we look at the first bar, how the piece starts, and it starts with this arpeggio, which is basically an A minor chord. And we have a look how the piece ends. It ends also with an A minor chord. Thus we can surely say that, okay, this is an A minor piece now. And then before starting to play, you just go through this piece with your eyes and you notice some irregular things. Like, for example, here in bar number 5, I see G sharps and F sharp. Yeah. So keep in mind, okay, I have some sharps here in this piece. And since I recognize this chord, I can say, okay, this is our dominant. Okay, so we have dominant in bar 5. And then I just go through and I see that there is some left chord pattern, like this one. So I try to analyze it a little bit before actually starting to play. And then when you start to play in a very modest, very comfortable tempo, but in a very steady tempo. And if you can't play something, if you can't recognize a chord, you just skip it. You just jump in right to the next beat. So we start, let's say 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then let's say 1. If I don't know what kind of chord is that, I would skip it in the left hand, play the next one, and then 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then let's say I don't know what kind of chord I have in the left hand, I will just skip it and go further, playing notes which I can recognize, for example, just the bass line. Reducing the texture, because sight reading is not for playing it perfectly, it's for just getting through with a minimal amount of losses. So that's why you just skip things you can't read perfectly from the first take, and then after you have finished, you return to that spot and you clarify what did they have. E7, A minor, E7, A minor. So now let's repeat those particular bars which I couldn't read for the first time. After you have clarified them, you read this piece again in the same tempo, but already keeping in mind those challenging parts you have encountered. So if you approach sight reading like this, and if you do it daily, let's say 10 minutes a day, you will feel a very good improvement already in a few months. This is just something that needs regular approach. So overall, it's absolutely okay to have only 50% of your time towards your main primary pieces which you want to practice properly, which you want to master properly. And another 50% of your time you would divide between different activities: ear training, sight reading, harmony learning, improvising. This will help you to develop yourself in an integrated way and also to keep you less bored. Thank you for watching this. Please tell me in comments what is your practicing routine looks like and what other suggestions you might share with other learners on this channel. Have fun playing piano and see you next time.